everyone, as you can see by my crown as well as my dress, I am Prom Queen Minion Michelle, and today for this, What I Would Have Done Thursday, I'm going to be briefly addressing the film Prom Night. Yes, and I'm not talking about the original one that was made in 1980. I'm discussing the remake that I was believed made in 2008, starring Brittany Snow as the main character. Oh my, where to begin with this one? This film in particular, I think, has a lot of problems. Problems that I think could be solved. And for this video, I'm going to sort of explain my reasonings as to what I would have done had I been in the director's or whoever's chair in order to make this film a little bit more bearable. So, without further ado, let me discuss some things and get some kind of background for you in regards to what the film is about. Well, basically, it's supposed to be technically a reimagining of the 1980s version, but it does not follow the plot or characters at all. So it's almost like they slapped on Prom Night and then they thought, yeah, we're gonna make a film that's like that one movie, but only for sake and for title purposes, really, because it really, again, again, it is in the horror genre, and again, it does have a killer that comes on Prom Night, but that's the only things within this film, within these two films, that are sort of coherent, and the same. But basically, I don't mind that it's not like the original, or if it's trying to be a reimagining, which I don't think it is when you really look at it. It's just trying to kind of be its own film, except take the same name from another film. So again, they could have called it just, they could have called it another title, and nobody would have really seen the similarity. But anyway, that's not an issue, I think. I think some people like to complain things don't follow, like certain adaptations don't follow the same original adaptation. But again, I think you can play around with this. I think creativity is really supposed to be about being open-minded to possibilities. So again, I don't think it needed to go like the original supposed movie is trying to follow. Now, what's a major problem with this film? Let me start by saying that the characters are uber duper duper bland. And by bland, I mean they don't have a lot to offer. And the thing is, too, is within the film, you'll see how within, like, around the opening, Brittany Snow's character comes home and finds her family murdered. And in the film, it does sort of hint at times that she is rather paranoid from that experience, because who would not be? But it doesn't really explore it all too well. And it doesn't really provide her a sense of growth throughout. So she just kind of ends up being the one that actually gets lucky at the end to survive. So, because she's the main character, so it kind of takes away the sense of trying to have the character go through sort of a growth stage or some kind of development. She stays the same pretty much throughout the entire film. And that's kind of a problem, especially when you want to have a character that went through such a traumatic experience. And I think it would have been a whole lot better had they did it while she was young. Like, if the killer came and murdered her family at a younger age. And the reason why I say that, too, is because, again, you know, as time goes by, you know, it would be more plausible that she wouldn't recognize the person, or, you know, or who murdered her family, or she, you know, her memory is, you know, maybe distorted, or, you know, her her mental health hasn't maybe fully recovered from the traumatic experience and whatnot. And there could have been like this whole this whole sequence executed in the beginning where they show this. And I think it would have come off as something powerful. But they kind of just shoehorn her experiences in and only do it for the sake of jump scares, as opposed to actually being scary, while at the same time giving a sense of horror for our main character. Sort of similar, again, it could sort of do a similar thing to what Aliens did, was this make the characters likable. So when something does happen to them, we sympathize with them because they're supposed to be a protagonist. So it doesn't really make any sense as to why it's not all that explained and not explored, especially considering that she is the main character. But that's kind of what the film suffers from. So I would definitely have changed that and would have made her story a lot more in depth and a lot more well thought out and explained, and not just, boo, ooh, you supposedly saw something. So there's also a thing too with the villain in this, the killer. The killer in this movie, it has no real explanation as to why he ultimately wants to murder the family, because the explanation that they give is just, it's probably one of the vaguest and kind of just I mean, it's not an uncommon one, but it does feel like that they took the most generic way of explaining like his motivations and just slapped it on the movie and said, yep, that's his motivations. And basically the killer is supposedly obsessed with Brittany Snow's character, and he thinks that if he destroyed her family, he could get access to her. Why didn't you just kidnap her? Well, why didn't you just, I mean, this whole explanation does not provide an ounce of an understanding of this guy's background. I think it would have been definitely a more logical explanation if he had maybe some vendetta against Brittany Snow's family, to be personally on the attack to them. And again, it doesn't need to be, we don't need to sympathize with him. We don't need to, but we need a little bit more of an explanation into a villain's motivations than just, oh, I'm obsessed with her. Being obsessed doesn't amount to you going and taking her family. It amounts to going after her. Like, so that kind of gets totally botched, because again, it's not really that well explained. Similar to, with how Brittany Snow's whole development is not really all that explored either. So it doesn't explore things that it should. So that's a huge issue, and I definitely would have changed that. I think some kind of revenge, some kind of vendetta, maybe, for example, he dated Brittany Snow's mom maybe a little bit a while back or something, and maybe she conned him or, did something bad to him that maybe left a huge impact on his life, and now he's out on the hunt for revenge. That could have been at least a little bit more of a detailed explanation. Or it could have been the father, too. Like, you could have gone into totally different angles and provided a clearer explanation as to why he would be after the family. So that, I think, would have solved that problem. And it's so easy. It's just so, it's unbelievable. Sometimes I just think to myself, these writers, you you can make something good out of this. You just need to just look at it and, just put something in there that works. So again, huge problem. Think definitely could have been resolved by that. And there is also a really ridiculous aspect to this movie when it comes to the cops. You will see throughout this movie that these cops are completely incompetent. Like, they are unbelievably, um, they lack anything that would resemble a competent law enforcement. I am not kidding. Like, these cops, once they realize that killer is on the loose, because again, they do find him, which again, I think was a dumb idea. Like, why not just have him disappear and nobody finds him? And then years and years go by, and that probably could be a reason too why Brittany Snow would be a little bit paranoid. That why have him be caught? That's just kind of setting up your movie for, I mean, for tons of I guess you could technically say plot holes, because again, he's supposed to be incarcerated in a very secure location, but still escapes. And instead of going in and saying, okay, we clearly know that this guy was obsessed with her. Okay, she's going to prom. How about we just don't do anything? We'll just let this play out. Like, it's just unbelievable. Just nothing. Like, just it's just nothing says. There's no logic in this at all. So they really just don't understand. Like, they they just don't want to. They just want to keep the. It seems like the movie just wanted to keep the plot going, because there's just so many barriers that it puts up for itself. And to me, that really doesn't work. So I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's just unbelievable. So I would have definitely made the cops a lot more competent. But again, these things could have been heavily resolved had the killer not been found, had this happened years and years and years ago. So, we see this happen tons of times, even within real life. Once a case has been sort of, in the cold, there's other cases that come up and the cops have to drop them because they have to focus on what's going on now. And there can be some reasoning behind this and an understanding of this, because sometimes with cold cases it's a lot harder to find somebody, because again, unless some new evidence comes up, you're kind of limited. So again, the movie could have solved these problems fairly easily. They could have made him not been caught. They could have had it happen years and years ago, so that the likelihood of him coming back just seems, so out there, but at the same time plausible. And the movie could have gotten into a whole explanation as how he happens to find Brittany Snow, how he manages to figure out where her location is, and things like that, because again, she could have been moved to, because again, the movie says that she lives with her uncle, I think, and aunt. So again, he could have tried looking them up, and maybe because since she's technically the only witness, he would have then a motivation to make sure that she gets killed, because if she is the only witness, then it can provide evidence to have him be put in jail eventually. So if he ultimately destroys her, there's no other people there to prove his guilt. And again, I think this could, again, this could have been a good plot point to have. But no, they just want to go with this whole obsession, creepy dude vibe, and it just doesn't work for this kind of a setting. It just does not, especially when you're getting all these inconsistencies. So I think that definitely could have been changed. You could have had this taken place, this murder taken place a long time ago, and then once years and years and years pass, um, ultimately, a threat arises again. Sort of similar to what we saw in the original, because actually in the original, the killer doesn't come out for revenge until like years and years later. So I think it only makes sense that we would, if there would be this kind of similar pattern, then again, we would have had a better product. So definitely, I think that's something that I would have changed. The deaths are really silly. The guy just uses a knife, and they're pointless too. Like they're just there just because. There's really no reasoning as to behind the killings, because ultimately in the film, he ends up killing some of Brittany Snow's friends, which again they're trying to go with the whole stupid angle. If they have her, that's somehow invading my obsession of her. And instead of being like, if I'm upset, okay, it just this whole motivation thing just does not make sense from his standpoint, because if you are obsessed with somebody, you take your obsession. You don't need to, go and go through all these hoops. You just go to the person you're obsessed with. And again, that's really what I think makes a lot of the deaths rather stupid and pointless and just and they're really not they're just kind of done for show, and it's just all it's gross. I mean, and I just can't stand it. It definitely doesn't want me to go back. It definitely doesn't make me want to go back to prom. I mean, for sure. So there's just those things that I think definitely could have been executed a whole lot better. And again, there could have been more of an explanation, for, again, if he does invade her prom, which is again what they could have done, and it would make more sense that he would go for that kind of location, because where else would Brittany Snow be? Either at school or at home, or somewhere with her friends. But how would he know exactly where that is? Unless, he figures out somehow, oh, prom. Who's gonna not go to prom? So, it would only make sense that he would find out her location that way, and somehow sneak in, and again, since prom is supposed to be a very lively atmosphere, it would make sense, because again, it's not like he's going to make the same mistake that he did initially by just going to somebody's house and automatically creating a witness who ends up surviving. So to me, that ultimately is something that again could have been explained more thoroughly and would have made a lot more sense. And then again, if there were some people that did get in the way of his plan, then yeah, you could have had maybe some people get unfortunately killed or something like that. But but no, this movie just wants to, make it seem like, it's like that cliche horror thing where they make something, they try to put in something, happy and joyous like prom, or I guess what prom is supposed to be, and then they say, you know what, let's just mess it up for the sake of messing it up, as opposed to having a fairly logical explanation. So again, I think those things could have definitely been more explored and could have provided a lot more context. And as a result, we get an understanding of the villain's plan, and then how the protagonists, in particular Brittany Snow's character, try to overcome that. And you could have again had this thing where she she's very traumatized still, but she still rises above and still um, tries to defend herself in any way she can. Within the film, the cop shoots him. So again, there's really no growth from her. So and again, it doesn't, I mean, again, I'm not saying that ultimately she has to be the one to, destroy the villain, but at the same time, I think it would have given off a more, it would have just been, I think, more effective in regards to story and in regards to her character. But I think again the people who were behind this film could have executed that in different ways. I'm not saying that that my way is right, but ultimately I think those are really the reasonings that I have in regards to why I think this film could have been executed a whole lot better. And again, it's nothing like the original, pretty much, so it is going for a new take, and this take was unfortunately very, very poorly executed. And I think it could have been done a lot better had they done these various things like I've mentioned. Given the main character more development, have a more clearer motivation from the villain, make the cops competent, and change little bits of the storyline in order to suit um, what could be sort of logical in these kinds of circumstances that the movie tries to set up. So I think that's really all I can say though, but again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'm more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant month of Halloween, and unfortunately, once the weekend approaches, us minions are going to be having a conference, or we're going to be going away, so we'll be in Hades for 2 days. We're probably not going to be back till Monday, so but again, the next minion will explain this too, but the Michelle minions are rather busy, and we got other things going on, so the other minions will try to have their videos up, but it probably won't be till Monday. However, Friday's video will be up tomorrow, that's no problem. And again, the other minion will explain this, but I'm just saying now just in case anybody is confused or whatnot. So again, Saturday's video and Sunday's video might be delayed till Monday. So just wanted to provide that little heads up. But thank you so much for watching, and bye-bye.